All right, Delaware Beer Fest fans, it's Dennis again, and we are on the Daily Beer Podcast. Welcome back. I'm going to be honest with everybody right now. I absolutely have been looking forward to this interview since we set it up. These are two great people, two good friends, our folks from Big Oyster Brewery. We got Tyler and we got Mike. How are you guys doing?
Great. How are you?
Not bad, Dennis.
Excellent. We are having the Big Oyster Brewery beer garden at the Delaware Beer Fest. Remember, folks, Delaware Beer Fest is October 5th at Frawley Stadium. You can go to DelawareBeerFest.com to buy your tickets. But we're going to kick into high gear with Big Oyster. I'm sure we're going to go down a lot of avenues here because Big Oyster's footprint in the Delaware Valley has just gone absolutely insane over the past couple of years here. So I'm going to punt it to either one of you to start. Let's talk about the brewery itself. And I know, Mike, you've been there a little longer than Tyler, so let's start with Mike then. Give me the origin. How did Big Oyster Brewery start?
So we opened, we're coming up on, this week will be 7 years at the Lewis location. I don't remember the exact day we opened in September, but it was like the second or third week in September. So this year will be 9 years that we've been open since we started, like 7 or 6 since we've had that Lewis location open. So next year will be 10. So I'm sure we'll start planning something crazy for that. But we're also very fortunate to have our Milford location open, which opened earlier this year. But the beginning, I was working at Claw's Seafood House in Rehoboth Avenue as the general manager, and I was ordering beer for Claw's and Finn's, which were our 2 locations at the time. We were planning on opening a 3rd location, which is now Finn's Ale House and Raw Bar on Route 1 in Rehoboth. And the big boss was like, "Hey, if you're going to be ordering beer, you need to have better margins. I want to open a 6 or 7 restaurants in the next couple of years. Like, we got to keep margins tight, blah, blah, blah." So I was like, "Well, why don't you just open a small brewery and we'll just brew our own beer and you don't have to worry about margins as much." So he had me do the research, and I had to hand him a file that said, "Hey, you have to spend X amount of dollars to make this happen." And that was kind of scary, but he ended up jumping on it, and we did it. So we opened up that small brewery inside of his 3rd restaurant, inside of Finn's Ale House and Raw Bar, and that was a 7-barrel system with 7-barrel and 15-barrel fermenters. And then started to grow quickly. We opened that the big facility in Lewis in 2017, and have been growing every year since.
Amazing. So you've been there right from the beginning.
From the get-go. I've been working for Jeff Hamer, the owner, since I was 16 years old. So I've been working for him longer than I haven't at this point.
Very nice. And then Tyler, when did you come aboard?
This December will be 3 years.
All right.
Already. It doesn't seem like 3 years has already been here, but it'll be 3 years in December.
Give me a little bit about you. Tell me about your experience so far with the Big Oyster brand.
It's nothing but great. I've been all over the place from, doing obviously way opposite of what I got a degree in. I have a degree in exercise science, so I'm doing the total opposite of trying to make sure people are healthy to now actually, tell them they need to drink some beer.
Well, beer is vegan, right? So it is healthy for you. And
yeah, we can make it that way. But I already had a few of Big Oyster's beers before I even joined on. So when the opportunity sprung to fill in the sales rep position, I knew I was gonna be working for a company that produced solid beer, and it makes my life a lot easier going out into the roads and talking to all the accounts. And I don't have to twist people's arm to say, "Hey, try our beer," even though it's not that great. But with us, we know. I know that we always produce something solid and always stays consistent, and there's usually never anything wrong with beers that we produce. People always seem to like them, and obviously, if people are going to keep drinking them, we'll keep producing the same great beer for everyone to enjoy.
Very nice, very nice. Well, speaking of the beer, talk to me about your signature beers. There's always a rotation, and as a definite consumer and lover of Big Oyster products, talk to me about your signature beers. What's out there all the time for people?
So it's always kind of a struggle, right? Like when you're building a brand, you need to have something solid, but you also want to be the next cool beer, have the next trendy thing. There's always a race to that part of it, but our tried and true golden, what do they call it? The golden goose, or the lead horse has been Hammerhead IPA. Really since we started. Our original head brewer Andrew brought that recipe with him when he started with us, and we brewed it maybe the second week that he was with us, and we haven't changed the recipe since. It's just gotten bigger, better, and it's about 50% of what we make is Hammerhead IPA, which is kind of a crazy number when you think about brewing somewhere between 6,000, 7,000 barrels, maybe a little more. That's a lot of Hammerhead. So it's really great that we have a beer that's been that successful, because part of building a brand is having something that you can lean on, and we're fortunate that's worked for us, and people love it.
Very nice, very nice. So Hammerhead is the flagship beer of Big Oyster Brewery. What would you say? Because I have my own personal favorites. I know what I like. What would be the next lineup? Like, what would be your? Because we're going to talk about your favorite drinks a little bit later in the podcast. But what would be either one of your favorite Big Oyster products? Like for you, Mike, for you, Tyler, what would be your favorite ones?
Go ahead, Tyler. You go first.
Oh, there's so many to choose from, to be honest. And this is not saying that obviously it's being biased here, but just taking the bias out of it. If I look at it from just a straight lover of craft beer, Meg is good. Hammerhead, you can never go wrong with Hammerhead. We did a beer a couple of years ago when I first started. It was a 9% triple IPA called Big Hop Energy. Just the way array of beers that we do is honestly, you can't go wrong with any of them. But if I had to say for sure, probably up there would probably be Big Hop.
Big Hop, very nice. Mikey, what do you got, man?
For me, I think I'm partial to Noir at Blue is one of my favorites of ours. It's more of a niche style beer, being a 9% Belgian triple. But when I was finishing up college, where I went to school in Rhode Island, they had Narragansett Brewery, and I drank a whole bunch of Narragansett while I was up there. But
crush it like Quint, right? Crush it like Quint.
Yeah. Anytime I would go up to a Flyers game or Phillies game, I'd hang out at the Victory Bar and have some Golden Monkeys before the game. And when we opened the brewery, I told Andrew, I was like, oh, man, I really want to do something like this, but what can we do to make it different? And we settled on the blueberry and black tea as kind of a Victory Golden Monkey adjacent, and it did well for a long time, and we still have it in our portfolio. It's year round, but it's not nowhere near what Hammerhead is, but people love it whenever they see it at beer festivals, or they beg for it at beer festivals. But it's still a mover for us.
So there's a funny thing, and you guys could finish this one, at the University of Delaware, and I'm going to call out all the students on this. They'll go to certain bars down there, and they will have the Noir Blue, right? They'll have one of those because it's what, ABV wise?
9%.
So they have one of those, and then they switch to Natty Ice for the rest of the night, which I think is a wonderful little niche for a Big Oyster, right?
Yeah. So my cousin, her son is a freshman at West Virginia, and he went with, I guess, some buddies from the dorm up to Pitt for Saturday's game last weekend, and they ran into some employees from Big Oyster Brewery who were tailgating with Noir at Blues in the parking lot, and I was like, yeah, that totally makes sense.
I would say my story with it, and I'll tell you, that's one of my absolute favorites with Big Oyster, was at the Winter Classic with up in Philly at the Link, and be it tailgating with Hammerhead and Noir. Oh my. I don't think I remember the third or fourth, whatever hockey has. I don't remember it at the end. It was I think it was that period. Yeah, I don't. Total fuzziness, but absolutely amazing beer. So huge Delaware Valley connection here. Obviously, we are part of the Delaware scene with the Delaware Beer Fest, and you guys are absolutely integrated into all things Delaware at this point. What about the Delaware Valley is a great connection for you guys? Is it? I've heard from other breweries about where the hops are made, or the water, or something like that. What about the Delaware Valley makes Big Oyster Brewery so good?
I don't. I just the Delaware Valley alone, I couldn't tell you, like, the amount of the craft brewery scene within the Delaware Valley, but also just look alone down for us where we are. Like you got a good list of other breweries. Obviously, everyone knows Dogfish, but obviously Dewey Beer has really grown on the scene. And I think obviously as the years evolved, a lot of people really started getting into craft beer. Now we've seen a little bit of a dip now with the hard seltzers, the hard teas, and the canned cocktails, but there are still people loving good solid craft beers. So I think it's just where we are within the tri-state. There's so many good breweries to go to, and people just want to experience because everything's within such a close drive. It's not far for us to get to Philly. It's not far for us to get to the Jersey Shore, not to New York. Like you're within reach of everything where we're kind of nestled at.
So kind
so
of that location. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting if you look at the map of all the Delaware breweries. Everybody has their kind of unique set of characteristics and challenges, right? Like you have the Wilmington area where there's a couple great breweries. Wilmington Brew Works is in a place where younger people live, and Twisted Irons up in kind of I wouldn't call it old Newcastle, but kind of like Newark. There's there it's kind of a progressive area where there's younger people, and then you have us down here where a lot of the year-round people are retirees. So your target market for people who are coming in to drink your beer is a little bit different at all these locations. So what all of these breweries are experiences of success are kind of defined in different ways, but either way, these brands that have been developed and have kind of grown over the last 5 or 6 years, especially in the Sussex County area with Revelation opening up a second spot and Crooked Hammock opening up multiple spots. Like there's different ways to skin a cat, they say. And I think everybody does a pretty good job with developing their beers and profiles, and it seems to work. So it's good to have that kind of craft beer tourism, whether it's in the north part of the state or the south part of the state. And we're hoping that we're contributing to it too with opening in Milford.
Very nice. Very nice. So we have Eric as the brewer now, correct?
Yep.
Eric is down brewing, and he has made some wild concoctions. He has really come out with some wild stuff. So talk to me about the creative process a little bit. How does everybody come up with some of these products? Do you literally just get on a Zoom with everybody, start throwing out ideas? Do you throw things in a hat? Talk to me about this creative process.
So there's not really been a defined way to go about it, right? Like there's a little bit of what everybody likes in a beer, which we've already talked about, some of our favorites, some of the things we like. There's been some of the things that we've tried and been successful with that we go back to. And then there's tweaking those processes, whether it's with the Dreamsicle series, adding different fruits or flavors, or the Lip series, adding same thing, a little bit of sweetness with vanilla or honey or whatever it is. There's little different things and changes that you can make every time you can make a beer that either keep people coming back to try something new, or the tried and true people who love their certain beers and styles, you keep them coming back. And we kind of try to balance those things, but quarterly kind of we've been coming up with different releases, and we just had a meeting last week for our upcoming releases in November, and then had everybody around a table kind of throwing out ideas for labels and names and things like that. And it really keeps it fresh, because it's hard for Tyler and Ian and I to go in, as much as we love Hammerhead IPA. It's hard to go into these same accounts and try to push the same beer you've been pushing for 10 years on people. It makes it fun to have something different and new to sell them. And that's important for us as a brand, to not only give ourselves new beers to sell, but give it to the people too.
One of the things, and both of you could probably speak to this one, there's almost this artistic competition among brewers about the can labels, and I think some of the can labels from Big Oyster has some of the coolest artwork in the world. It really does, and I'm not saying that I never pander to anybody. I'm truthfully saying that it is really cool artwork. What about that? How, one, is it the same artist over and over again, and two, where does that inspiration come from? Does it come from the beer, or does it just come from everybody else?
And so when we originally opened, our artist and graphic designer was Laura Erickson, who is the wife of Red, who was one of our brewers when we opened. And she's a local artist who's thriving in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware now, who does art full time. And she was helping us out kind of as a side hustle when we made Hammerhead, Solar Power, and Noir at Blue. She painted them and we transposed them onto beer labels, and we kind of ran with that for a little while. And as we developed and grew, we added Mandy Margarita, who's now Mandy Boucher, and she's a graphic designer and our marketing director, and she crushes it. She's super, super talented. Anything we throw at her, whether it's a ridiculous idea or something super clean and straight line, she gets it done. And it's really important because when you're standing at the craft beer aisle at your local liquor store, you stand back and you look at it and there's 120 beers to choose from. And how do you make your beer stand out compared to everyone else's? And more than half of that battle, I would argue, is artwork. Like once people have had enough of your beers, they know that generally the quality is there or not there, depending on who you are. And the art just makes it stand out. And we made that very clear to her when she started, and she was already making beer labels before she started with us, and she crushes it. So we're lucky to have her.
Very cool. Very cool. Tyler, you finding the same thing? People are drawn to the artwork? Do you...
That's literally what it was for me. Like, I'm not loyal to, breweries on brands and certain styles. And if I really didn't know what I was grabbing before I got into industry from the sales side and just looking at myself as an avid drinker, I was like, what can stands out the best to me? And if it turned out to be, I don't know, like typically a saison person, but like the can drew out to me, so I already bought the 4-pack, so I might as well drink it. And sometimes you come to like what you grabbed, and sometimes you don't like it. But again, what drew me to the can was the art.
Very cool.
So it's basically another form of easy marketing for your brewery.
And you'll at least pick the beer up and look at it. Like maybe you pick up something with cool art, you look at it and you say, "Oh, I'm not a grapefruit person," or "I'm not a dragon fruit person," or whatever. You might find out you don't like it, but at least picking it up, holding it, and looking at it, maybe you increase your chance at making a sale.
I agree. I absolutely agree with the both of you. So we're coming on, I think this is year 7, 9, 12. I'm not 100% sure anymore. It all drags together because of the COVID years of Delaware Beer Fest. You guys have been the troopers in our flagship since the beginning of the festival. You guys have brought Hammerhead. You brought Solar Power before. We're coming up to the one here at Froley Stadium. Are we bringing our favorites for everybody? Are you debuting anything at the Beer Fest? What do you bring to Delaware Beer Fest?
Well, I mean, I'm sure we'll have all of the staples. And I mean, the last couple of years we had, what was it, 8 taps, Tyler, and then we had that rolling cooler of some limited beers too. So I'm sure we're going to have a really nice mix of things. We're not going not trying to leave anybody out, and we'll make sure that we have all of the staples. But I'm not sure exactly what we have planned. I don't think we've submitted it to NKS yet, but we'll make sure we bring something exciting.
Very good. Very
always
good.
Pumpkin season too. I mean, people love our pumpkin. That's our best-selling seasonal by a landslide, and I'm sure you'll see that there as well.
Yeah, and shuckin' pumpkin, which we could talk about that forever. And I have said this. I have openly said this. This isn't new. This isn't because you guys are on the podcast right now. Probably one of the best pumpkin beers that you're going to have. And I think you guys do it justice. I think if people get to taste it, they are, because it sells out. It sells out almost everywhere that you bring it. It literally, if people get to taste this, they will change their mind about pumpkin beer, and they won't feel so basic. That's the problem. I think you have pumpkin beer, you immediately think basic, and this is far from basic. It's an amazing beer. So kudos to Big Oyster for their pumpkin ale. So let's try that one. Fan favorite wise, in recent years, and I know that you guys have gone off the mat with a lot. We've got the sours coming out, obviously the ice creams, all that great stuff. What have you seen as the fan favorites outside of, say, Hammerhead or Solar Power? What do you see as somebody coming in and saying, I need to get this every year that when it comes out?
Oh, I think for sure, it's definitely the Dreamsicle series. For whether it be pineapple or Delaware, which is almost like the orange creamsicle. Those two are probably for sure the most two standouts that people always say they truly love. Obviously, we get a lot of old requests from a lot of the older beers that we might have discontinued from the original sours, from whether it be Marley or Isabel. But people really have gotten bored with the cheesecake sours. Whale Song has been doing very well. So yeah, and we've done I feel like we've done a good job going through and bringing some of the old stuff back to bring the fans back into it and letting them enjoy the past beers that they really truly love that started maybe what they started doing liking us. So I feel like we've done a good job in rotation. Now it's just a matter of what maybe for next year do we bring out in rotation again? Who knows? It's always something we're talking about because again, we do like to highlight the things that did start the brewery and got people to enjoy us and love and bring them back once in a while.
Very nice, very nice. And I'll ask this, and I will just ask, not as a zinger, but what have been the misses? Like, meaning that you put something out there and everybody just went, that wasn't what we were thinking it was going to be.
I think for me, personally, I think kind of was kind of the reboot almost of our self-serve series that we did last year with the stout. Kind of what everyone kind of got on board with. We tried to do a Neapolitan stout. And I think also with it being the self-serve series, people kind of got confused with it used to be a sour. So kind of throwing the stout curveball kind of threw people off. But I think with the stout, it just a lot of people said it was just more chocolate than they anticipated with being a Neapolitan. It's kind of hard to blend the chocolate and the strawberry and the vanilla. So sometimes some flavor might get a little bit more prominent than the other, which is always chocolate anyway.
Sure.
Chocolate being such a strong flavor, but some people did say they got the other flavors, but again, it was kind of more heavy chocolate for more people's liking.
Right. Mike, what do you think? What were your misses?
I think for me, when we tried to make Shamrock Dreamsicle green, I think that was our biggest flop.
Yeah.
We had a meeting with one of our distributors, and we were like, oh, well, what can we do to make this beer better? Because the original Shamrock Dreamsicle recipe was amazing. It's minty. It's creamy. It had a lot of vanilla flavor. And we were like, well, it's a short period, limited release thing. Like, what can we do to make it better? And they were like, well, can you make it green? And Eric, of course, went, of course I can. It's going to be perfect. And it just didn't work the way that we wanted it to work. And we took a risk and tried it and ended up eating a little bit of it. But, it's about the hunt, right? So you try to do something fun every once in a while, and it could be a little bit of a brand risk and a financial risk by doing something like that. But sometimes plans just don't go accordingly, and that's all right.
And it's funny, out of the Dreamsicles, I will say Shamrock was one of my absolute favorites, and that was the original. So thank God I didn't pick up a can of the green.
Yeah. It wasn't always bad. Like sometimes if you bought a 4-pack, 2 of the cans would be perfectly green. One would be like a little off green, and one would be like a smoothie, like spinach green. And it's like, well, just not appealing. So it's all right. We just won't do that again, and we'll just make it the same great beer we always made it, and
just keep it rolling. Eric is the evil genius. He's that man behind the scenes. He is our Oz, I would say. He's the Oz. So talk to me a little bit about industry trends. I've spoken to a bunch of people on the podcast about the RTDs, about the seltzers that are coming up, that even the RTDs are starting to take a little bit away from the beer market, from the craft beer market a little bit. Talk to me about what trends you're seeing in the craft beer world.
So it's not. I mean, unfortunately, the news isn't really positive for craft beer, right? Like, there's a lot of RTDs coming out. Every brand, or I'll use Surfside as an example, that has a good financial backing, that's coming out with multiple SKUs, multiple options, good branding. They're making a dent, and it's not necessarily us being a smaller regional brewery who's really kind of taking it on the chin, but some of the bigger regional players are really struggling because they're losing their 20, 30, 40 case displays that they had used their bigger marketing budget than we have to pay for, you know what I mean? And they do a really good job most of the time, and it just makes it hard. And I think we're going to see a little bit more of that in the craft beer community, especially in Pennsylvania the next few months with the law that they just
Yep.
passed with the RTDs. But I mean, in some cases, if you can't beat them, join them, and I think you'll start to see some of that happening in the craft beer world too. So we'll see.
See kind of where it goes. And it's funny because and again, this is just talking to other people in the industry and so forth. It's that craft beer lovers love their craft beer, and period. Don't give me anything else, and then there's those marginal folks that are even taken away from the tried and true, like your Miller Lights of the world, your Bud Lights of the world. They're switching over to those RTDs and the vodka sodas, and where does everybody go at that point? And hopefully the craft industry will survive. That's our big thing.
And a lot of it's price consciousness too, right? There's people who have X amount of dollars per week that they allocate for their booze budget, and when you go in, you're making a lot of times these days you're making a legitimate decision based on how much money you have to spend, and depending on what the ABV is and whatever it is ounces wise that you're buying, people take that into consideration. So price point is definitely part of the battle as well.
So we got to take the University of Delaware lead, buy the heavy duty craft beer right at the beginning, then just drink the silly stuff after. No,
There you
just
go.
kidding,
That's
just kidding.
right.
I
But
think kind of too with some of that happened. I think with COVID, obviously with the bars and everything closing down and people not being able to, I'll see, with liquor stores being still a essential, or else there'd be mass riots of liquor stores closing down. People obviously with the canned cocktails wanted to, start experimenting, and at home there's nothing else for you to do besides experiment and making your own cocktails. And then I feel obviously once that happened and we kind of loosened up, people got lazy again, and just instead of wanting to make it, just figured they would just drink obviously pre-made things. They didn't have to worry about making it themselves anymore. But also I think the people trying to be health cautious and with the whole carbonation and no bubbles and not feeling so full after drinking X amount of beers, you can drink twice as many, hard teas and
Sure.
not feel like you're full. And then lesser calories but also I think with the industry, you're starting to see a lot of the older styles starting to make their way back into appearances. Like the pilsners and lagers are really starting to make their way back, and those are things that people really didn't think of really drinking. It was more of the heavy IPA, heavy fruited sour focus. But you're starting to see a shift of those starting to sip down a little bit. People are kind of getting off the train, and they're really starting to go back into the old styles.
Sure.
So
Yeah, I see. I agree with that. I'm starting to see people move away from the IPAs. They have their tried and true ones. They have the ones that they will constantly, go back to. But the lagers and the pilsners have really stepped up. It seems like more and more of the craft breweries at least have 1, 2, 3 options of a pilsner or a lager at this point, which I don't think it's a bad trend. I just think it's a trend, right? It's one of those things that
gotta
happen.
have something for the older generation, not still be on board with the IPAs and
Sure.
everything of that nature. So for them, if they can drink something that's close to a Miller or a Bud Light or a Michelob,
Right.
it's going to help break them into the craft beer scene, which maybe then might experience their horizons and maybe dip into things that they never thought they would want to drink before. But then now they open their taste buds to different horizons. Now they might be that new IPA drinker. I know for me, like with my girlfriend's father, like every time I go over now, he has a different IPA. He's like, "Oh, do you try this IPA now?" And he's always been like a Yingling or a Corona person, but like now he's really opened up his horizons and he wants to try different things. And it's going to take time with obviously where the industry is and how the craft world's kind of down right now. But I think it's just a matter of time. We'll see him back in a couple of years that the craft will really be strong again, and all the seltzers and the hard teas will kind of fizzle off. Same with the cocktails, but I think there's still going to be a place for them. But I think within the next couple of years, you'll start to see the rise of craft again, and people really be back on the craft beer scene.
Well, beer is biblical, so it's beer has been around a lot longer than a canned Paloma or something like that. It's been around a long, long time. It's funny you say let's go back to the old style. If being somebody in Generation X raised in the 1900s, we got to go all the way back to Schlitz for me to go back to the old style. I don't know if we ever want to go back to Schlitz for the old style. Just putting that out there for you guys. So you guys are a part of the community, and I could say that in a very loving way because of our collaboration between the Trauma Survivors Foundation and Big Oyster Brewery, developing Survivors IPA during the pandemic, where I think both Mike and I never thought it would ever happen, and then the label hit and it happened, and man, I took some road trips out to Pittsburgh and Lidditz and you name it, and we got it rolling. But you guys are huge into the community. So talk to me a little bit about the different collaborations. Like I know, especially one, and you guys can talk about it, especially with pediatric cancer. You're very big with that movement. Talk to me about your collaborations.
Yeah, I mean, anytime we try to do collaborations, it's usually with significant charitable motivation behind it. You know what I mean? Like sometimes breweries come to us or whatever. Do you want to do a collaboration? Yeah, sure. But when we want to do something the right way, and if you're going to dedicate the time and energy to have marketing people behind it and sales people behind it and whatever else, you want to make sure that the beneficiaries get the biggest bang for their buck and they get the best promotion out of it. And I think we really hit it out of the park with Gavin's event at the brewery. And I don't think we've done anything quite that big since then, but it's not something that's like off the radar. You know what I mean? We're always looking to do something like that, but Gavin and his family are great. And we were super proud to be able to put on an event that big and that successful that time of year. And I haven't talked to that family in a while, but it seems like they're doing pretty well. And I hope that they continue to progress towards their goal. I don't know if you have an update on where they are with their goal, but
last time I spoke, I think it was probably about like a month or so, probably a month and a half ago, and I ran into him actually at Kennett Creamery. Ran into him. The son was very joyful, running around, super happy. Wouldn't even know. Obviously, he had his prosthetic. But I think if I remember correctly, when I was talking to him, they were only about $5,000 away from their total goal. So they were very within reach. I think they said they had a doctor picked out and everything, and that they were starting to do the research. But obviously, they had to finish off paying that bill for said doctor. But they were pretty close to the that final push.
Oh, that's awesome. That is absolutely amazing. And being in attendance to the event, it was just you had, and not to glom on it or anything like that, but there was this biker group that showed up from Jersey to Gavin's event, and I'm looking at these guys like, what are they doing? They ended up giving a check for, I think, $5,000, right? It was something very close, a huge check. And they just said, hey, when it comes to kids, we all have to come together. And such a beautiful gesture, such a really nice event with you guys. I am still personally waiting for Eric to make that phone call to me to say, hey, I finally got the formula for the new Survivors something. But, I'll stay and wait. I'm still a drinker.
Now's the time of year. We're starting to slow down a little bit in terms of the craziness. So we're looking towards early next year projects. So now would be a good time to start.
He better give me that phone call. I got ideas. I got thoughts. So here's I've asked all of my other folks with this one. So I'm coming over for dinner. What are we drinking at your house? What do you got? What do you got personally? That's some of your favorites at your house. Not necessarily Big Oyster, but what are we drinking lately?
You don't even want to get what mine.
Uh oh. Go ahead, Tyler. What is it?
I'm a big hockey guy. I feel obviously Mikey's going to know where I'm going with this.
No.
But for me, it's Pink Whitney, New Amsterdam vodka. I'm a big Spit and Chicklets guy. Obviously, I listen to their podcast. Obviously, love those guys. They're big hockey guys. So obviously, you got to support the hockey guys with their drinks that they make. But I have a couple whiskeys and bourbons laying around that once I am tired of drinking beer once in a while, I will dip into those from time to time. I would probably say would be Pink Whitney for sure.
Pink Whitney. There is actually, and I'd have to send you over the recipe. There's a golf course drink using the Pink Whitney right now, and it has taken over most golf courses. So it's a
birdie juice.
Birdie juice. There you go. Yeah. It's hilarious where the trends go with that one, and people. I have been on several golf courses where people have asked me for it, and I had no idea what it was. So it's funny.
You can drink it straight on ice, or you can mix it with a little club soda or Sprite or whatever you want to make. It mixes well with everything because it's just pink lemonade.
That's amazing stuff.
I mix mine with pineapple Truly, if I'm being honest, and that's a little bit of a dangerous cocktail, but it's great.
So is that what we're drinking at the house, Mike? What's going on there?
No, I haven't been drinking at home a lot these days, but if I am, it's usually an old fashioned of sorts. I'm a big old fashioned guy. I like when we go out to dinner, I try to do old fashions. If I'm only having one drink or so, I really enjoy Bullet Bourbon is one of my favorites, or like Redbreast whiskey is one of my favorites as well. So if I'm not drinking a Hammerhead, it's usually an old-fashioned or an old-fashioned adjacent.
There you go. Very nice. What are your guys' thoughts on Negronis? I got to get your thoughts on a Negroni, a good Negroni.
Okay. Can't say I never had one, but I know what it is. So
all right.
I might have to give one a try.
I will say, go to V&M Bistro. We all know V&M. Ask Margarita to make you a Negroni. You guys will you'll enjoy it. The right amount of sweet, the right amount of bitter. It's kind of like my life. Anyway, moving. So future plans. What are we looking at with Big Oyster? And Mike, you said it. He wants to open up 7, 8, 12, 15, 34 new locations.
Well, he did exactly what he said he was going to do. I got to say. I mean, we have multiple Finn's locations with one in Bethany and one in Fenwick. We got JR's Seafood Shack in Fenwick Island. We just opened the restaurant part of the brew pub in Milford earlier this spring. I guess it was late spring.
Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, it was Memorial Day weekend it opened, and that brewery is getting there. They got the concrete poured. We have all of the equipment. They're going to start loading it in, so we should be actively brewing beer there before the end of the year, I hope. And then we'll see. So at some time in 2025, people will see a development for either a new part of the distribution footprint or new 12-ounce can options or a combination of the two. Once we have a little bit of timeline on that, we'll kind of let people know what's happening. But it's definitely something to look forward to from us. Very
nice, very nice. How and speaking of South Jersey a little bit, as you talked about earlier, how's South Jersey taking in Big Oyster Brewery?
It's been trying for sure. I don't think it's definitely not the lack of probably the beer on our part. Obviously, people liking it. We're just kind of having a little bit of an impasse, I guess you would say, with our wholesaler, and they're not really more concerned probably on that area as much as they are where they're centrally located in Central and North Jersey. So it's we're getting there. We're getting slowly placements. We're getting slowly to people get on board, but it could be probably a little bit better. For sure.
To push it out there. But I would assume people are enjoying it.
More problem, I would say, than a beer problem or an availability problem. So
yeah,
it's just a matter of getting the beer in front of people, and we're going to be doing a whole bunch of events this fall to try to see as many people as we can. And I mean, that's how it started organically in Delaware too. It was just me going by myself around all these bars and restaurants trying to to get a draft line here and there, and that's what we have Tyler doing. But with him having accounts in Northern Delaware and a good portion of Maryland, there's only so many places he can be at once. So he's doing his best, and we're doing our best. It's just probably going to take a little longer than we all would hope.
Yeah, we had good receptions when we did the AC Beer Fest. A lot of people did like the beer, and enjoyed it and asked where they can get it. So it's just a matter of doing a couple of bigger festivals, and we're doing one with those basically the same group of people who run AC Beer Fest on October 11th and 12th. It's a beer fest called Witchcraft out in Hamilton. They do it in the middle of a campground, middle of nowhere. It's supposed to give you like that Jason Voorhees vibes. They want people to come dressed up in costumes, Halloween themed. They want the vendors to decorate their tents with lights. So we're hoping having another Friday, Saturday big festival in South Jersey kind of helps push the needle a little bit more in our direction.
And I'm going to give you've heard it here first, folks, type of thing. So obviously we've moved into Frawley Stadium. We've had talks, obviously we've had you up to the All-Star Craft Beer and Wine Festival at Citizens Bank Park. We've had you out to PNC Park. We actually are having you at Philly Beer Fest at the 23rd Street Armory. But there's a little birdie. We're not sure the name of the birdie yet, but we're a little birdie that says that we might be doing the AAA Ballpark Series. I'm not going to say who, I'm not going to say where, but it's going to start at Frawley Stadium on October 5th, and the Trauma Survivors Foundation supports Big Oyster 100%. So we want to get your name out there, make sure that you guys are as successful as you already are, but push it to that next level. You guys are an awesome brewery and awesome people. So we got a final fun question with this one. I'll start with Tyler first, go down to Mike. Fun question. If you could create a drink, you personally could create a drink, a beer, a seltzer, I don't care what it is, that's inspired by somebody famous or somebody that has inspired you, what would that drink, beer, or whatever be named? What would it be? And who is that inspiration?
Oh, I've kind of already did something like this. So, I love the guys at Miss Pillion. We used to be sponsored with them. I play adult recreational hockey down in Harrington. So does Mikey. We used to be sponsored by them, but obviously this is tying back into Pink Whitney. They did, obviously everyone knows Miss Pillion for their War series and the electrolyte beers. So War Possum is their strawberry lemonade. So we mixed a little bit of War Possum with Pink Whitney, and we called them War Whitneys. So I don't know. Obviously I think a beer cocktail would be a cool thing to do. It's just a cocktail option where I don't think people realize you can actually take beer and mix it into a great cocktail. Everyone knows everything else when it's just obviously liquor and bitters and everything else. But if you truly find a good style of beer, you can mix it with liquor, and it is tasty. So I think I would probably be like a beer cocktail of some sort.
So the beer Whitney, the War Whitney is what it is.
If you don't know this about Tyler, his favorite thing is to blend beers into concoctions that you would probably not recommend people trying to drink.
But they do work out. We've made some beers because of my creation.
Hey now.
Yeah, he 50% of the time he's right every time.
So it's like Sex Panther. All right, Mike, shoot me. What you got?
I don't know. I think that it would be cool, assuming that we wouldn't get in trouble for copyright infringement in any way, shape, or form. I think something with Rocky would be kind of sick. Doing something with Sly would be awesome.
Very nice.
We had this dream to do one of our old brewers, Craig, had a good relationship with the Kelseys from when they played football at Cincinnati, and we wanted to do something with them, but with their podcast and success, I think that ship has more than sailed, unfortunately.
Well, they have the garage beer, you could have done garage beer,
Yeah, I think that's gone to the wind, but I think it'd be cool. Either a Rocky Balboa or a Wayne Gretzky kind of beer would be pretty sick of some sort. But
oh my God, there you go, the Great One beer.
Exactly.
Perfect. I love it.
I don't think we could afford that, unfortunately.
Well, as always, you gentlemen, you're always amazing. You're always good people. Always cool to hang out with you. Great to get to know a little bit more about Big Oyster and so forth. Thank you again for being with me today. And folks, look, come see Tyler, come see Mike. They have been when I tell you, when we made this beer garden, I never knew how much they would have to be working the beer garden at the Delaware Beer Fest, but they are constantly pouring. They're always going to have a joke and a smile for you. Make sure you get over there. Remember, October 5th, Delaware Beer Fest. Go to DelawareBeerFest.com. Remember, we're at Frawley Stadium this year, folks. We're taking over the stadium. So many cool events there. So many cool activations. We have everything, but one of our big things is our Big Oyster, Big Oyster Beer Garden. You're going to be able, if you get a VIP or an ultra VIP ticket, you're going to be able to get full pour, or a pier. If you want a pier, you're down in Lewis, you can get a pier, but you can have a full pour, 2 full pours from Big Oyster, which I'll tell you right now, nothing tastes better or hits better than a full pour of Hammerhead at the ballpark. I just think it's an amazing beer. So, gentlemen, thank you so much again. Appreciate you. And Delaware Beer Fest fans, we'll see you October 5th. DelawareBeerFest.com.